Can God actually forgive you? Or is his forgiveness predicated on him punishing someone else? I'm Michael, the Bible ReThinker, and it's time to rethink. When Jesus was with his disciples, he taught them how to pray. And among the things they were taught to pray was to say, "Forgive us our debts as we also have forgiven our debtors." Sin was taken as a metaphor of debt. Because we sinned against God, we have a debt with God. And since others have sinned against us, they have a debt with us. And the prayer obliges us to forgive others in the same way that we've been forgiven. In fact, Jesus even went on to say that if you do not forgive others in the way the Father forgives, then you yourself will not be forgiven. So, what do we even mean when we say that the Father forgives us? So often we've been told that since God is righteous and he's a righteous judge, that he cannot just outright forgive someone, as in just overlooking an offense, but rather that his wrath has to be satisfied by punishing someone. But did Jesus intend for us to punish someone in order to forgive someone else? Let's look at this another way. Say I lend somebody money. I lend them $10,000. And I go to them and I say, "Hey, you owe me $10,000. You need to pay up." And then somebody steps in and they pay $10,000 on the person's behalf. Now the debt has been satisfied for sure. But did I ever forgive someone of their debt when the debt was simply paid by someone else? So if someone sins against us, is somebody obligated to pay that debt off in some way? Surely that's not what forgiveness means. Jesus actually told a story about forgiveness when he said there was a king who was settling debts. And there was a man who owed him 10,000 bags of gold. To put it in modern English, we could say he owed zillions and zillions of dollars. And so the king called the man in and he said, "Hey, it's time to pay the debt." And the man dropped on his knees and he said, "I just don't have that money right now, but give me time and I will pay off the debt." And then the king looked at the man and he had mercy upon him. And he chose to forgive his debt. Now, in this scenario, who is it who actually pays the debt? A third party didn't jump in to pay the debt. And of course, the person who had the debt did not pay the debt. Who paid the debt? Well, the king paid the debt. The king chose to take the debt upon himself in order to release the subject from the debt. The story has no third party who intervenes and causes the king to have mercy. In fact, the king has mercy because he is, well, merciful. He forgives because he wants to forgive. And normally, when Jesus told a story like this, the king was meant to represent God. The subjects were, well, you and me. And the idea is that we had a debt that we could never pay. But that when we cried out to God for forgiveness, he was willing to forgive that debt. Now, how did he pay that debt? How was that debt eradicated? Well, throughout the Gospel of Matthew, where this parable was told, and where Jesus taught us to pray to forgive our debts as we forgive our debtors, we find that Jesus ultimately is God's representative. Jesus is the king. But the idea isn't that Jesus pays God on our behalf. No, the image is way more powerful and meaningful than that. That Jesus himself was and is God. And that Jesus paid the debt by bringing the suffering upon himself. It's not to appease God, but we see in Jesus God himself suffering, God himself paying that debt, God himself doing what it took to relieve us of our debt with him. So the king himself pays our debt. God himself paid our debt. It wasn't that God was angry with us because we had a debt and therefore he poured out his wrath on Jesus. That really isn't forgiveness at all. And when we forgive others, we are not simply finding some pond to pour out our wrath or anger upon, however justified it may actually feel at the time. That's not how forgiveness works for you and me. When we forgive somebody, we're choosing to let go of the offense they've committed against us. We're choosing to not make them pay it back to us. So when God forgives us, he's choosing to let it go. Forgiveness is a picture of God's love, not a picture of God's wrath. It's a picture of God's mercy, not a picture of his righteousness. And so when we say that God forgives, we are not saying that a third party paid on our behalf. We are saying that God himself paid the debt for our release from sin. What do you think about what I've shared today? Do you agree? Do you disagree? What are your thoughts on this question about forgiveness and what God's forgiveness means and what it means for us to forgive others as well? And please be sure to hit the subscribe button and visit my website at thebiblerethinker.org, where you can find exclusive content and you can support this channel.